everyone, this is Dr. Nisha Nujumudeen. The topic of discussion for the day is potential GDP and its determinants. So in concept 1, we saw what is GDP. Concept 2 was GNP, NDP, NNP. And concept 3 was factor cost and market cost. And today it is about what is potential GDP and the factors affecting or determining this particular concept. This is a very important topic for prelims as well as mains examination. Now, what is potential GDP? So before knowing the concept of this particular potential GDP, you should know what is inflation. Inflation means, in simple terms, price rise. For example, today the price of tomato is 20 rupees per kg. Tomorrow the price increases to rupees 40 per kg. That is called as price rise in simple term. And in economics, we term it as inflation. So the definition of inflation as per UPSC keyword goes like this. Inflation is a continuous or a persistent rise in general level of prices. Having said that, inflation keeps on increasing in our country, India, right? So it became very important to limit or target inflation at certain prescribed limits. So in 2016, the central bank of our country, India, that is RBI, they came with a committee called as Monetary Policy Committee. In that, they decided to target inflation or to keep inflation at certain permissible limits. And that came to be called as inflation targeting in simple terms. Now, inflation was targeted at the rate of 4% with plus or minus tolerance band of 2%. I repeat, 4% with plus or minus tolerance band of 2%. In simple terms, 2, 4, 6. That's it. Which means 4 is the ideal rate of inflation. That is up to 4%. Rise in price level is permissible or considered to be ideal. 4.5, 5.5, they are considered to be what? An increase. And now 6 is considered to be the maximum level of inflation, which means beyond 6%, price rise or inflation should not take place. It will cause serious trouble. And 2 is the minimum level, which means below 2, 1.8, 1.9 also, inflation should not come down. Why? Because that is not good for the economy. People think inflation is bad, but for a developing economy like India, inflation is a natural and a necessary characteristics. Having said that, in our country India today, as per November 2024 data, what do we see? Inflation is more than 6%. It is 6.2%. But the target is what? Only up to 6%, which is the maximum value. But ideal is 4%. So now, why I told you this particular topic is when I teach you potential GDP, the factor called inflation will come. The factor or the term called constant inflation will come. So you'll understand what is inflation, how it has to be targeted. Now, having said that, what is potential GDP? It measures the highest level of output or the maximum level of output an economy can produce or sustain over a period of time without generating inflation, which means keeping the level of inflation constant. That is the meaning of potential GDP in simple term. What is the highest output any economy can produce, but you cannot create or generate what? Inflation. It has to be same or constant. Can you think of keeping inflation constant? No, it is not possible. That is the meaning of potential GDP. And that is why potential GDP is considered to be a pure theoretical concept. It works only in theories, not in practical scenarios. You saw in our country, India, though we have inflation targeting also, what is happening? The levels of inflation are fluctuating, right? So now, as for this definition, inflation has to be constant, which is not something that is possible. So now, if any economy have to produce or attain potential GDP means, that is the highest level of output they have to produce without generating inflation means, the condition is that they have to have an adequate labor force, a highly skilled labor force. But in our country, India, majority of the population, even today, are in the agrarian sector, and most of them are unskilled or semi-skilled. So how can you think about potential GDP? The second thing is, if you want to have potential GDP, then capital accumulation, more of wealth, money should be there. Only then investments, innovations, all these things can happen. And the next thing is that a policy and a proper regulatory framework environment should be there, which means that the government policies and the bureaucratic structures of the country, it has to be very simplified and not complex, so that the potential GDP can be attained, and there should be proper availability of natural resources. But so many factors are affecting our country India from realizing or attaining potential GDP. Let's see what are they. One is lack of proper infrastructure facilities that is actually hampering our country India from attaining this potential GDP. Next is low agriculture productivity. Third is lack of availability of natural resources like land, minerals, energy, etc. So automatically what happens? Highest level of output cannot be produced. And now the complex environment we have with regard to the strict bureaucratic or the government policies, all these are preventing our country India from attaining potential GDP. Last but not the least, lack of proper advancements in technology. That is also another factor that is what affecting potential GDP. Having said that, there is something called as GDP gap. What is that? GDP gap is nothing but real GDP minus potential GDP. So now to attain potential GDP, the meaning of that is full employment, excellent output, excellent consumption. Oh my God, everything is high in the economy. The total output as a whole is high, but without generating inflation. And that is why it is called as a theoretical concept. I hope this concept is crystal clear to you. So feel free to put forward your queries or feedbacks via the comment box. Stay tuned for more such videos. Thank you and Jai Hind.